don't have to give anybody any lines. I must do my homework. Well done, everybody. So again, today I have the pleasure of introducing our wonderful speakers, and same process as last week. The speaker will have 15 minutes, and maybe Rosemary, Declan and Andrew, just to make you aware that I will give you a 2-minute warning like this when you have 2 minutes left to speak. And then we'll take 10 minutes for questions and answers. We'll probably be able to take no more than 2 or 3 questions per round, but same process as last week. If people have additional questions, you can type them in the chat and we can ask the speakers to respond to those additional questions later, and we can give you the answer later. Is that okay? So now I'd like to invite Rosemary Finnerty from Klein Diocesan Youth Service in Cork to speak about her project. And Rosemary, I'll let you introduce the nature of the project and what it's about.
I want to screen share there, if that's okay. Okay, can everyone see that?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thanks a million, Janice. So I suppose, as I said, my name is Rose and I'm a youth worker with CDYS. I know Klein Diocesan Youth Service is a bit of a mouthful, but we're based in Cork in the south of Ireland, and I work in a town called Fermoy, and I've been there the past 4 years. And I suppose today I'm here to talk about a project that I've been involved in the past, I suppose, year or two. I suppose for our organisation, we're quite recent in the last maybe 2 to 3 years getting involved with Erasmus Plus and projects. I suppose last year, or nearly 2 years ago now, I'd done a course with Erasmus, the European Youth Mobility Project Management, another mouthful, and that's where I met Declan, and I know I met Janice there as well. And we had the opportunity to go to Finland, where we met the partner for this project. So the project that I'm going to be speaking about is called Young Decision Makers. So it was a KA1 youth exchange, and it involved 60 young people aged 14 to 17 years from both Ireland and Finland. And the theme of the project was exploring human impacts on the environment. I suppose the activity itself was for 1 week last October in Finland, in a place called Martinen, in a youth activity centre. I suppose the budget for our project was over 42,000. So we had 2 partners, there were 16 staff from both countries and 60 participants. How did it all start? In our organisation, we have a regional youth council. I suppose the 30 participants that were involved are from 3 different towns in our organisation. So Middleton, Fermoy and Mallow. And I suppose I specifically was working with 10 of these young people in Fermoy. But we have youth councils, and then they meet collectively every couple of months as a regional youth council. And I suppose at these meetings, the young people decide, I suppose, what they want to be doing in their youth service, what's their needs, what they want to get involved in, and program planning for, I suppose, the service for the year ahead. And I suppose the young people had huge concerns around the future of their environment and wanted to learn how they could help. And I suppose in recent years, it's been a huge topic, especially for young people, and it's been all over the media. And I suppose the young people that we were working with wanted to get involved with that, but also felt that they wanted to learn more about it, that maybe they didn't feel that they knew enough or were doing enough in their communities or in their homes. So I suppose we identified Finland as a partner because we felt that they had really good practice around environmental issues, and that the young people there were really interested as well. So I suppose after identifying them and connecting the young people with other young people in Finland, they created WhatsApp groups and did some video calls and got to know the young people a little bit better, and they were very excited to have us over to Finland. I suppose then the application process started then, but on our side in Ireland, we started by, we went to our local university in UCC in Cork, and we went to the geography department. They had us in and they did a lecture for us around just human impacts on the environment and gave us an idea of different areas that we could look at. So we looked at biodiversity, extinction, recycling and climate change. And for Fermoy specifically, we looked at biodiversity. So we looked in the community and we realized that our local tidy towns had huge involvement with biodiversity and bee gardens and trying to promote that. So we were able to connect in with them, and then we made some seed bombs and dispersed them locally. And it was quite exciting to connect in with them as another community group as well. And I suppose before we went to Finland, the National Youth Council of Ireland came down to Cork and did a training with the group of 30 around global warming for One World Week training, which was another way of learning and developing before we got to Finland, because we felt we needed to kind of get a baseline of information before we went over as well. And I suppose the main activity itself was 7 days in Martin Youth Centre in Finland. That was last October over the midterm break. I suppose when we went over there, the first day or two was all about getting to know each other and I suppose planning for the week. And then they created different workshops that they were going to be involved in. This is the young people themselves. So they were taking different topics, all about the same theme, and preparing it for a showcase at the end. So these included songwriting, a dance, write poems, spoken word, there was art, outdoor activities, there was lots of different things. And I suppose there was something for each young person, because I suppose 60 young people is a huge number. So you're trying to make sure that everyone has an area that they're interested in and wants to be involved in. So we had our intercultural evening, and the Irish young people got to try some reindeer meat, and we got to get into the ice lake and go to the sauna, which was all amazing and a huge experience for some of the Irish young people. It was Halloween when we were there. So in the beginning, the Irish young people were quite disappointed when they realized they weren't going to be in Ireland for Halloween, as it's quite a big night for Irish young people. But we promised them that we'd celebrate it over there. So I think Halloween is a big Irish tradition, and maybe not so much a Finnish one. So the young people were able to talk about and tell stories and teach the Finnish young people all about Halloween, and everybody dressed up and all that kind of stuff. And then I suppose at the end of the week, we did a showcase. So we opened up, the centre opened up to the public and the local community, where they invited local politicians, people in the community, different stakeholders to come and see the young people and let them present their work over a day. And there was like activities outside, there was different things happening. It's a huge centre, and there was loads of things that people could get involved in as well, both from presenting the work that they've done, but also for people to try different things like zip lining and outdoor stuff as well. So they presented all their work, which they were so proud of. And I think this was really important, because at this stage, they'd put in a lot of work beforehand and a lot of work leading on during the exchange itself. So it was nice to have something to present all that back, and it really gave a little bit of closure to the youth exchange while we were in Finland as well. And I suppose from then we did a lot of evaluation with the young people and reflection. We actually did reflections every day, and I think they were really important for the young people. We kind of took them in small groups each evening, sat down with them, asked them what worked, what didn't work, what, you know, is there something going on today? Can we make it better tomorrow? Or what worked and we can do that again? Because I know when you're bringing a group of young people away, you know, the theme is obviously very important in what they're exploring, but there's also everything else that goes on alongside that. You know, for a lot of the young people that we're working with, it's their first time to travel to another country. It was their first time going on a plane, maybe the first time going anywhere without their parents. You know, some of them were as young as 14. So that was a huge thing for these young people. So supporting them with those things was really important as well. I suppose the youth exchange itself has had huge impact on the young people. They still talk about it every day. You know, someone's going to bring something up about, remember when we were in Finland and this and that, or do you remember, you know, whatever it was. There was huge development of environmental awareness, and that was huge. They were able to bring back that to their community. They were able to talk about it in school to the other young people that access the services, you know, to their parents. I think a lot of them were like, oh, I can actually make a change at home. I can start at home. I can, you know, we don't recycle at home. Let's start there. You know, they realize that they can be a part of this and also start small, but, you know, be part of a bigger picture as well. And I suppose, as I've mentioned, the life skills that they've learned were huge. You know, a lot of the work leading up to going was all about the travel. You know, what can I bring on the plane? What am I allowed to pack? Can I bring this? Can I bring that? I'm allowed to bring this. And, you know, there's a lot of worries and fears around traveling and getting on a plane, and how does the airport work? What do they do in security? And those questions as well. And looking after themselves while they're away. You know, we brought 8 staff, and we needed the 8 staff, if not more, you know, because I suppose, you know, a week's a long time away from home, and, you know, they needed to be responsible to make sure that they were eating enough, getting up for breakfast, or drinking enough water, and all those things as well that, you know, they might forget about too. And I suppose the intercultural learning as well, that was huge. You know, meeting Finnish young people and kind of learning that, you know, we have similarities as well as differences, and, you know, that maybe being a young person, they had a lot in common as well. And a little bit about culture, and that maybe the Irish arrived and we were loud and, you know, all over the place, and, you know, the Finnish might have seemed a little bit reserved, but then by the end of the week, you know, everything just balanced out. I suppose then when we came back, the National Youth Council had an event in the RDS in December in Dublin for One World Week, and our project was invited up to perform the song that they wrote during the youth exchange, which was really exciting. So they were so excited to go to Dublin. Going to Dublin is nearly as exciting as going to another country, because it feels so far away for people in Cork. So they were very excited to get to perform there as well. I suppose these are just some testimonials that some of two of the youngest participants who hadn't traveled before wrote for me. I'm just going to have to try and move these boxes here so I can see it. Yeah, so traveling to Finland was a big step for me with being independent, and it meant I would keep track of my own things and make new friends. Being in Finland opened new doors for me with learning the culture, and also learning about myself and how I could improve on myself. So our Finland trip meant the world to me, and I'm so glad I got the chance to go, said 14. Finland impacted me very positively. I made plenty of new friends. I really enjoyed it because I learned a lot about Finnish culture. I'm sure they learned a thing or two about ours. The youth workers were so nice, and Rose helped me out a lot too. I stayed in a room with 6 guys, which was new to me, but I got used to it very fast. Overall, it was a great experience. And I suppose before the youth exchange even ended, the young people were like, we have to do this again. We need to, you know, the Finnish people were like, we want to go to Ireland. The Irish wanted to bring them to their country to show them where they're from. So we knew before things ended that we were definitely going to make a plan for the Finnish, for there to be a second part to the project and for them to come back to us. So I suppose during the lockdown, it actually gave us a good time to start planning and thinking and coming up with ideas, especially because everything went online. It meant our Finnish young people were now no further away than anyone else because everybody was working online. So we were able to use Discord and go on and meet the young people and plan and come up with ideas of what we want to do. So they came up with a project that is similar, but just a different aspect. They were looking at fast fashion and food waste, and we got an application in, and I suppose we hoped that we would have been able to go in October, but maybe next year. But we're looking forward to the next part and for the Finnish to come to Ireland. I suppose that's everything, guys. If you have any questions, you can ask now, and if there's anything that you think of later, my email is there, so feel free to send me an email at any stage. Thanks a million.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rosemary. If you want to stop sharing your screen. Perfect. Brilliant. Now I can see everybody again. So congratulations, Rosemary. It sounds like a very interesting and meaningful process for the young people. We have some, no, they're not hands up, they're claps. So people are giving you a big clap there.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any questions, you can just give me a wave there. And okay, so Nadia, we'll take your question first.
Yeah, I was just interested in the selection. How did you work around the selection? Was there a quota when it comes to gender, or how did it work?
I suppose we have a youth council and we 10 young people from each town. So we had, I suppose the maximum amount of participants is 60 when applying for a youth exchange. So split that down the middle, that's 30 for each country. Then we were 3 towns, so we said 10 each. And then looking at the youth councils, we kind of really, you know, we only had a few more than 10. So I suppose everyone got the opportunity to be involved in the beginning. And then we did have like an application process. But to be honest, it ended up being that anyone that wanted to go did get to go. People might have wanted in the beginning, but then towards the end, they were like, no, I'm not sure this time. Maybe they were a little bit younger as well. So the gender balance, you know what, it actually was quite even, just naturally, you know, trying to ensure 5 and 5, but I think it was like 6-4 for each area. You know, generally it was quite even.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. Any additional questions? Oh, Caitlin, if you want to unmute yourself.
I also, Michelle, I saw you had your hand up before. Do you want to ask before me? Okay, I'll go first.
You can go.
I was wondering what the Irish young people were most impressed by, or what stood out most to them in terms of the environmental practices in Finland.
I think a huge thing that came up was in the youth centre, there was a canteen, and so the amount of food that they could have was endless. It was a huge buffet, you know, the food was amazing there. But I suppose the only thing that the Finnish looked for was, you can have as much food as you want, but you need to eat it. So, you know, around food waste. And they were like, it's something that they never really maybe have thought of before. It's like, put what you think you'll eat on the plate. If you want more, you can go back up. But they were huge on having, I suppose their policy was like a 0 food waste thing in the centre. So to be honest, I think it's something that maybe the young people hadn't even crossed their mind before. So I think that in itself has influenced the next youth exchange. So I think that was a real significant part. Thanks, Caitlin. Thank you.
Michelle, apologies, I didn't see your hand up there a few minutes ago. So if you want to go ahead now.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Janice. I'm in a similar situation to you, Rose. We did an Erasmus Plus in January, and we were hoping to do the second part. We were going to carry on, and they were going to come over here. But you mentioned Discord. Is that a what? Could you tell me about that? Just the way that you're interacting with them now.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
Like for us, we've been using Zoom. That was our main platform. But the Finnish had said, okay, we use Discord. We find it really good. And I suppose the young people that we were working with were always like, can we go, why don't we use Discord, not Zoom? Discord's better. So we knew the young people we were working with were also using it. I think its original purpose, it's a gaming website where I suppose gamers talk while they're playing games online. I don't know if that's the best explanation, but when you get used to it, it is quite helpful because you can have different rooms. So one room could be introduction. So everyone has to just put a little picture up and of themselves and write in it. Or there's ones that there's chat rooms where they can chat and you can have different topics. So like in ours, we had a sauna room, we had, you know, the kitchen, you know, the youth center, whatever it is, you know, and people can move into different rooms and we can, from each room, there can be one room where only youth workers can go in so that we can chat and figure out what we need to do next. Like I think Zoom we were comfortable using, but Discord has a few more options that make working with a big group of 60 young people actually possible at one time. I think the Finnish youth workers use it all the time, so they were the ones taking a little bit more of the lead till we got used to it as well. But I definitely recommend it.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'll have a look at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. So we're a tiny bit ahead of time. If there's one more question, we can take it. No? Okay. So in that case, we will move on. And just an observation, the project that Rose has just spoke about, Martinen in Finland, is also the organisation that was involved in the Young Critical Thinkers group last week. And a tiny funny story from that group of young people in relation to sauna. They were invited to come to sauna, and as many people know, you can go to the sauna naked in Finland. So our young people proceeded to say that it was a child protection issue. So just an example of the level of conservative practice in Ireland sometimes is a real culture shock when Irish young people travel to countries like Finland. So thank you, Rose. Now I'd like to invite Declan and Andrew from Waterford and South Tipperary Youth Service. Is that right, Declan?
That's us. That's a complete mouthful, lads.
It's a mouthful, yeah.
We call it Waterford Youth Service. Simple as that. Sound grand. So, right. So I think I have about 10 or 15 minutes to talk about what we did, right, as a group. So I first met Rose actually out in Finland, in Martin, and when you think about it, we went to Martin, didn't we? So we've been dipping our toe into the waters of Erasmus Plus for a couple of years, is what we've been doing. But so we've developed a network of about 15 or 16 European organizations. And like many great things that happen in Ireland, this particular one started in the pub, right? So where we go in Waterford is we have a lovely little pub next to our youth building. And we were in there one day and we were talking about the sayings of Ireland, you know, things that kind of make sense in Ireland. So there's two sayings that I'm going to ask you to keep in mind for the next 10 or 15 minutes, okay? So the first one is, you cannot be what you cannot see, okay? So that's a nice simple one. So you cannot be what you cannot see. It's nice to take these things down and feel involved in the next 15 minutes, right? You cannot be what you cannot see. And the second saying that we came up with was, it takes a village to raise a young person. So they're very common. I can see a lot of the Irish heads in the audience there kind of nodding a little bit. Ah, yeah, no, I remember that. So you cannot be what you cannot see, and it takes a village to raise a young person. Okay, so bear that in mind and all will be revealed shortly. So what did we actually do? So we had a group of young people known as the local climate activists. They were a group of young people. They were aged between 18 and 24, and there was 32 of them in total, and they came from 5 different countries. So they came from the north of Europe, from Finland. They came from the east of Europe in Armenia. They came from the south of Europe in Spain and Portugal, and from the west of Europe over here in Ireland, there, the Atlantic. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to inspire young people and to generate real, tangible ideas to bring about social change for the environment. And the areas that we were operating in was, if you kind of view do you know a Venn diagram? Do you know where you have a little circle and there's another circle and then there's another circle? So one of our circles was nature, the second circle was climate change, and the final circle was youth well-being. Okay, so you can't say youth mental health because that seems to be a different thing all over Europe. So youth well-being is what we kind of were talking about. And it was the areas between those 3 topics. So nature, climate change, and youth well-being. And that's where we were. So I'm hoping that Ruth might have a little video that we might play. I don't know if you do, Ruth, do you?
I have the video here, Declan, now.
So we're going to play a small little video for about 2 minutes, just to kind of get a feel for how we, what we actually did, okay?
I'm sorry, I'm actually just, if I could ask everybody to turn themselves on mute. There's a bit of interference in the background and we can't hear the video. So if everybody, thank you, perfect. And I'm assuming everybody can see the screen, yeah? The video, yeah, good.
Janice, we can't actually hear the video.
You can't hear the video?
No, so you might need to click out of it and go into it again and select that you need to share the audio.
Oh, wow. Hold on 1 second. Mika, do you have audio on your computer if I...
No, you need to click out of screen share.
Okay, 1 second. Apologies, everybody. So stop sharing, yeah.
Go to share again.
Okay, yeah.
And then when the box comes up, you'll see on the left-hand side, there's a small little box to tick to share computer audio. Do you see that?
I don't know, unfortunately. So I go to share screen and they are...
To the option of which screen you want to share. Is that coming up for you?
Yes, it is, yeah. So, oh, I have it now.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Thanks, Ruth. Perfect.
no problem.
Thank you very much.
I feel responsible for this weather.
I feel responsible for the sea.
I feel responsible for our wildlife. I am responsible for the waterfalls.
I feel responsible for animals.
Buongiorno, mi chiamo Lucia.
Bonjour, mon nom c'est Blaise.
Hey, mijn naam is Eleonora. Hello, welkom in de Sydney. Привет, меня зовут Алина. Привет, я Слимина.
Olá, nós somos de Portugal.
Eu sou a Jéssica.
Diogo, António,
Margarida. Daniela.
Hola, somos Inés,
Helena. Mati. Andrea.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
It is what it is, lads. You know, occasionally we have slightly technological interruptions, but the reality is you can sense what life is like in Ireland in February. Okay? It's beautiful, utterly beautiful, slightly rainy and cloudy. That's all I can say. You know, but it just gets a gist of where we were and what we did. So it was very much about exploring the outdoors and things like that. So that's what we did. So why did we do it? Okay, so there's lots of kind of reasons why we do things, okay? But we listen to the young people, and from an organizational point of view, we are trying to put together a response to the needs of 18 to 24-year-olds. And we are using the Erasmus Plus as a kind of a scaffolding or a framework to do that. So we did a needs analysis last year of things that 18 to 24-year-olds want from a youth service and what they want in their life. So very like the values piece that we just did a short while ago ourselves. So the reality is that they asked us for 3 things, which are kind of strange, right? They asked us for risk, they asked us for adventure, and they asked us for the environment. So we decided we are putting things together. So do you know, when you're 10, to try and use the metaphor of kind of Russian dolls. So do you know when a little person is 10, they have different needs to a person who's 14. And when you're 14, you're interested in your friends and your school and your identity and your relationships. And then when you're 19, if you're building up on it again. And then when you're 23, the world is different. You're interested in how to engage with the world. At least the young people that we work with are trying to engage with the world. They're interested in employment. They're interested in adventure. They're interested in having something to tell the lads down the pub on a Friday night that, God, I was in Estonia last week. So that's sort of an idea, okay? So that's really what they're interested in. But they're also really interested in making an impact on their lives and their communities and just being heard and making a difference. So from the young person's point of view, we are trying to provide that, but there are always barriers. So like most of the young people that we work with are from seldom heard communities. So like there's loads of barriers. There's physical barriers, there's financial barriers, there's emotional barriers, there's community barriers, there's all sorts of things. But Erasmus Plus provides a framework to increase the connection with opportunities, is what it does. And then we used different methodologies. So we brought young people out into the middle of nowhere. We did forest bathing, which I'd strongly recommend if anyone is ever interested in bathing in a forest. We went swimming, we went mountain climbing, we went cliff walking, We saw the wonderful wilds and explored Ireland is what we did. But the thing about it is that young people learn differently. So young people, you know, there's peer learning, experiential learning. There's different ways that young people learn and different styles. So that's what I mean by it takes a village to raise a young person. You have to do it in lots of different ways, and then some things click and some things don't click. So it's that connection with others is one of the reasons why we did this. And then the final thing is that the young people picked the topic they wanted to work on, the environment, nature, well-being, and that was meaningful engagement with their world. So they engaged with a topic that was really meaningful to them. So the reality was that, you know, why we did it, there was a connection with opportunities, there was a connection with other people, there was an engagement with the world in a meaningful way. And from our organizational perspective, it was part of a response to the 18 to 24s. So that's why we did things. And the final aspect of this is, how did we do it? Okay, so we started with the words of the young people right back at the needs analysis last year. And then young people joined in and designed it basically with us, actually, to be quite honest with you, for themselves. All that we had to do was facilitate it. They had the ideas. They're creative, they're resourceful, they're complete. They have the answers within themselves. So they designed a project that they thought would be fantastic, and it ended up being fantastic. But they made the decisions about what they wanted to spend money on. So and maybe the people from Lérgas might not like me hearing this, but the reality is that they made the decisions about where to put the money and what to do with it. So that's the reality of it. But we found that kind of the international youth work piece for us is the tip of the iceberg. So there's kind of the top 10% is above the surface, and it's the glamorous going off places and meeting lovely people from all over the world. But 9/10 of the work is actually under the surface. It's the youth work that has been done. It's the groups that are formed. It's the relationships that have gelled the group together. And it's only at that stage that we can actually go off somewhere. So that's how we do things. One of the other best things that happened to us as well was, and I know this sounds peculiar, but my little son got sick in the middle of it. So he was in hospital for 3 days. So I had to go to hospital with him for 3 days. But that got me out of the way. So what happened was the young people, I think once the facilitator gets out of the way, sometimes the young people just rise up and take it on. And that's actually what happened. So in a very strange, bizarre way, my little son being sick was actually really beneficial for the group. The other sort of way that we enabled people to really partake and make it meaningful is that they designed creative presentations using music, song, dance, food, art, everything was thrown at it. And they presented for about an hour. Each country presented the state of the environment and what they were doing about it from their own country's perspective. So that was a wonderful, we did that in the centre of our youth service here in Waterford. And all of the local youth workers came in and loads of young people. So we had quite a creative world is what we did. And then the final piece in terms of what actually, how we enabled young people to take part really and to participate well, was the final day we had a significant idea generation session where the young people took over and they generated about 1,000 ideas on what they wanted to do with the environment to improve the environment. So we had this vast walls covered with things. And it was stunning to see the ideas that were coming from the young people. And that's what we kind of wanted to do. We wanted to inspire young people. So unless we put them out in the environment, they couldn't be what they couldn't see. So that's where that comes from. You cannot be what you cannot see. And a lot of our young people live in a city centre. So really being out in the middle of a forest is a different thing. And it opens minds and changes perspectives. And then there were so many people together, all creating this lovely magical youth work stuff that goes on. And that's what I mean by it takes a village to raise a young person. So that's the what we did. That's why we did it. That's how we did it. And the final little piece that I'm going to have is just the impact of it. So the reality is that actually it's much better to hear it from a young person rather than me, because I can go on a little bit, right? So what we're going to do is going to ask Andrew just to say what the impact was from the young person's point of view. Andrew.
There you go.
So I'm just going to give like kind of a quick summary of like what I found from it and kind of what feedback I got from the other young people that was on the All right. So first thing is, look, we went, I think it was February, we went to Woodstown with the 4 groups, 5 including ourselves, from Finland, Armenia, Spain, and Portugal. And we just kind of like shared ideas about climate change. What we'd learned about climate change through our own kind of studies processes and all that, and also learned a little bit about each other's culture.
Andrew, can I ask you just to slow down a tiny bit, because I love what you're saying, but like me, you speak a little bit fast. I can do that too. So last week I had to be reminded to slow down. So just slow down a tiny bit and off you go. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, it's the inner city water for me, sorry. One thing that I did notice on this was kind of how passionate young people tend to be about climate change. But also there seems to be a bit of anxiety about it, because it's this big, huge problem that they kind of look at and say, it's governments, they have the kind of control over it, multinational corporations, they have the kind of control over it as well. So there is a bit of anxiety there. And I think like that's the great thing that this group does, is it kind of gives them control. It gives them kind of this ability to say, actually, I can do something about this. There is a way to kind of work around this. There is a way to have an effect on it. And through that kind of empowerment of young people, it kind of gets rid away of that nervousness. It gets rid, and it shows them that, you can really make a difference, to these kind of things. The other thing as well that became very apparent was the importance of Erasmus+. So most of the people that were at our meeting, they wouldn't have been able to be there if it wasn't for Erasmus. And in my opinion anyway, travel, it's a very important form of education. It's an invaluable form of education that most young people nowadays, they just can't get at. And being realistic, I learned a lot from, kind of the Armenians, the Finnish, all that. And you'd learn a lot about, kind of how the way people act, how the way people kind of go about problems in different countries, which is kind of interesting as well. The other thing that became very apparent to all of us was the kind of international approach needed on climate change. So now, these aren't my own facts, these are facts that I was kind of told by the young people at it. But Ireland ourselves, I think it's less than 100,000% of the world's greenhouse gases are made by Ireland. So being realistic about it, we can't make that much of a difference. But 17% of it comes from Europe, the world's greenhouse gases. So if we kind of have if we have an approach that we kind of attack it as kind of a cohesive unit, we can make a difference on it. And I think that's something as well that really became transparent, that if we work together, if we kind of connect all of these things, that we can make such a huge difference in the world. And that was something that I really took away from it as well. So that's me pretty much done. I will hand you back over to Declan, and thank you for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew.
So that's kind of, there's just an impact from a young person's point of view, So ultimately, kind of from our own organisational point of view then, what's after happening is we've developed a really deep network across Europe, and we kind of together, again in the pub to be quite honest with you, we decided we wanted to do a KA2 application. So we did, and we put it in, and then we worked very closely together and collaborated, over a course of a number of months. And we've been successful in our application. So we have another KA2 application going on about Be Environmental. So we've another 2 years work to do with the same partners again. And we feel that we're really going to do tangible things. And those things will be decided by the young people. So there's a real progression over the last couple of years for ourselves. The other sort of thing that's happened though is that beyond the Erasmus Plus process, we've also developed partnerships outside of that. So we have lots of other groups, and we're currently working with Spain on an educational piece around the environment. Our Armenian friends are developing an app with our local Corla and Anoke, which is another youth group. And it's gone beyond Erasmus Plus now. So those links are there. And what we have now is we've got a network that we use Erasmus Plus to work with, but it's gone beyond that. So there's been a lot of developments have happened for us. So that's the kind of the impact. So last minute, We've basically gone through what we did, why we did it, how we did it, and I'm just going to bring you back to the very last two little things. It takes a village to raise a young person, and you cannot be what you cannot see. That's it, lads. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Declan and Andrew, and thank you for those very inspiring quotes. I really like the you cannot be what you cannot see. Yeah. And I suppose that's what we're trying to do in terms of all the projects we run, is to expose young people to new things, because you can't be what you can't see. So loads of claps going on there. And so same process as before. We can take 2 or 3 questions if people just want to give me a wave. Any questions for Andrew or Declan?
It's literally always me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I really enjoyed hearing about your project. And I wanted to know particularly the part where you talked about your needs analysis feeding into what you wanted to do and how you ended up with those 3 focus things with nature, climate change, and well-being, and the young people being involved on, you know, having input over the budget. Are you crazy? So, like, how did you work like that? And did you start far in advance of your application? How did you manage to be so reflexive?
Okay, right, that's a big question now, right? What I might try and do is divide our answer into 2, okay? The first piece is about our own organizational strategy, and the second piece is about power. Now, wait for me now, and I'm going to try and explain that, right? So the first piece is that every 5 years, our organization creates a strategy, and we build that on a very in-depth needs analysis from all of our projects. And we have about 4,000 young people that work with us. So there's a big process. It's a year-long process that we go through, and we find out a huge amount about what young people want from that process. So we use that as the basis for our for this particular project. But then we saw Erasmus Plus as a kind of a strategic piece, that this is what we could hang our 18 to 24-year-old response on. So what's happened then is we've used that strategically. So we've attracted young people through that, or worked with young people through that, and they've gone out then and spoken to all of their friends. So now all of a sudden we have 6 or 7 different elements to our 18 to 24's response. So we have Erasmus Plus, we have a very successful 18 to 24's Chill Out LGBT program, we have a number of drop-in programs, we have youth employability initiatives. So just through listening to it. So really Erasmus Plus has been embedded within our own strategic approach, and that's the way that we're using it. The other piece where the needs analysis came from as well was we kind of had worked over the last number of years with some of our partners, and we had thought we'd like to do a KA2, the larger scale project, a strategic partnership project. So part of our plan, part of the young people's plan, was to do a needs analysis with the young people that we were with. So that was one of our overarching aims of our youth exchange, was to get ideas from young people and from different countries and see what they all wanted to do. So that was part of the idea generation process. So that's why we wanted 1,000 ideas of what they wanted to do. Because with the best will in the world, I don't have all the answers. They seem to have all the answers. So there's a kind of a 2-parter to that. So that's our strategic approach to Erasmus Plus. And the second piece is about power. So it absolutely terrifies lots of people to give the financial control to the young people, right? Now, there's always financial checks here, and we have an office and all the rest of it, right? But in actual fact, where does power actually reside? And very often, power resides with the person who signs the check. So if you really want to empower young people, and that's really what your overarching thing is about, connection, engagement, empowerment, you've got to give them some authority, and they've got to take that authority. You know what I mean? We can't just give them the authority, they take it. And therefore they make the decisions. Now, if they're going off and buying a double kayak to wander around Norway for the next 7 weeks, they're not going to do that, right? But the reality is They're going to decide where we're going to go to, what buses that we're going to use, what food we're going to have, all of that. They make the decisions, you know, and then basically Erasmus Plus pays for it, but through our own financial controls. So that's how we do that, you know, so it involves them.
Yeah. And Declan, I think a word that you probably haven't said, but I can feel a huge element of trust. And, you know, a lot of people talk about empowerment in youth work, but there is no empowerment without trust. And congratulations, it seems like you've given a lot of trust to the young people. I'm conscious of time. Andrew, is there anything that you want to add in relation to that question?
No, not really. Like, I think that Declan pretty much filled it out, especially with as you brought up, the trust. That is a huge part of it. And I know, like, for young people, when we went into it, definitely, that it was kind of a shock to us. That's kind of like, here's your budget, now what do you want to do with it? But it really did help empower us, and it gave us a lot of confidence that we can actually work on projects like this in the future. So
absolutely. I mean, sometimes as adults, we think we know what young people want, but young people know what young people want. And some comments coming up in the chat box. So there's from Aileen, very inspiring presentation, Declan and Andrew. From Rose, well done, Andrew and Declan. Great to hear your story. And just my point on huge element of trust. From Caitlin, that is really amazing stuff, Declan and Andrew, and thank you for sharing. So Mika has a question, and this is the final question. If anybody has additional questions, you can type them in the chat.
It's just a comment as well, because we run similar, and you know, I've worked with 15-year-olds running projects, also the finances, and I met one of the 15-year-old that was at that stage 28, and he pulled out his purse at one stage. We were somewhere together buying a coffee or something, and he looked at all his receipts in his purse and said, you know, this is your fault. I cannot throw out a receipt anymore. And now I've always got receipts wherever I go, because I was never allowed to throw out receipts. And I thought it was like 10 years after doing the project, that was a bit of feedback I got. But I think that was brilliant.
Are they called life skills, Mika? Yeah.
Exactly. It was very, very good.
Yeah. And I'm sure from the largest point of view, you know, you can identify the level of different competence that young people are gaining from these projects, you know, social and civic competence, mathematical competence. I even developed my digital competence today, learning how to use the video. So
great to see. And I hope for your sake down Woodstand that the pubs reopen soon, because it seems that all the creative juices start flowing over a pint.
There's a lot of strange things happen there, like is what it is, Pia.
Okay, so we are about 2 minutes ahead of time, and I think we'll be nice today and let you have your break early. Are you agreeable to that, Mika and Ruth? Yeah?
So we see each other again at 10:55? Okay. So if group 1 can just say a few of the key learning points.
Okay, yeah. We discussed about what we have learned, and we decided that the main point was the importance of engagement and participation of young people in every aspect of the process of project. Yeah. Meaning not just, let's say, developing their knowledge about the topic and social skills, but also that background of organization and implementation of the project. And also we found it very important to learn about their perspective and to, let's say, light up their passion, meaning encourage them to express themselves regarding that topic that they are passionate about, and learning their perspective. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that. And then the next group, just try to find your keywords only like it would have been in the Menti. So that's group 2.
Will you do it?
Yeah, no problem. I was looking for the unmuted. So we were kind of mainly talking about the power, trying to encourage young people with the decision making, how important the research was, and then inclusive practice, involving different young people, different cultural backgrounds, and with the Discord trying out new methods, and also with the video showing things from another perspective, I think was the words we used, if someone wants to correct me. But yeah, they would have been the keywords we kind of got there.
Thank you very much for sharing that. The next group.
Yeah, that was us. I just put the words that because we kind of went off on a different tangent, but so basically we thought the most important thing that came out of it was like communication is a massive one, I suppose. Communication between the leaders and the young people that they're working with, and then communication between the partnerships as well that you're going to be linking in with. So the next word was partnership. Then interest was a big one. So we'll say like the guys from Washburn were talking about doing a climate project. Like you have to, the young people themselves would have to have an interest in the subject, that, or else like it's pointless. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't get as much out of it unless they had a kind of an interest in what was actually being done. Support was another word that we used. So support again would be between the leaders, I suppose, and then support between the leaders and the young people they're working with, as in to get engaged as much or participate as much as they want to. Like the lads were even letting them, you know, have input in how the budget was going to be spent and all this kind of stuff. So just supporting in that way. Trust as well, again, between everyone involved, leaders and young people alike, like to trust them that if someone's going to be getting the opportunity to do a task or a job, you know, like whatever it is, doing a bit of research or something, that you're going to trust that they're going to do it, but that, you know, that they know that they're being trusted to do it. Do you know what I mean? So that everyone is kind of on board will be important as well. So that was kind of the main things that came out for us.
Thank you very much. And I think this is the last group. I'm not sure. There might still be another one.
So they are a little bit connected. So we thought about like the trust and young people as leaders, because there needs to be trust with leaders and the facilitators, but like give the young people like the opportunity to be responsible for the money and everything. It needs to be like the trust, and like it's very important like young people to be leaders of the activity, and just like to give an important change and make a difference. We thought about like the difference about the initiative or the activities, like a difference in the life of the young people, but then just like the multiplier effect, because they will change the community and the school and everything what they bring, and just like it's going to be like this multiplier effect. And like give voice to young people is important, and then just like not learning skills that is important for the activity, but life skills they can bring to their lives and their communities. I think just like it's the most important keywords that we thought.
Okay, thank you so much. And then we still have a fifth group. Oh, that's a lot of pages.
Yeah, but we also decided what are the two the main things. The first thing is the non-formal learning, because like we saw in the presentations, it's about adventure, experimental learning, going outside, to be there. So the quote like, you cannot be what you can see. So that's one thing. And the second thing was like trust. We know trust is very important, and you can create trust, do conversations, to give young people the final say, to create debates, stuff like that. So that are the two main things we chose.
I don't see trust on your post-its.
So the yellow one, trust is very, yeah, there. Okay. Above space.
Trust is very important. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Thank you so much. So it is quite clear that that trust is one that comes back a lot, huh? So if we would have a mentee, we would have seen trust as a big recurring word, which is interesting. I think that's also something that I really took from it. And also if I think back of my own practice, it's the trust, and also trust to make all those, even the trust to give them decision, what time are you going to go to bed if they're on the 18th? You know, they're very basic decisions. Because if you tell someone, oh, you have to be in bed by 10, then already you take away straight away the fact that you can trust them. So trust runs all through projects. It makes As soon as you give trust, there is more power that you give to people. They're very, very important to mix together. And yeah, I think that is a very good sum up of the learning. It's nice to see that you guys got so much from the presentation. It's also very nice for you, Andrew, to see that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Rose is not here anymore, but it would have been Rosemary. But it's nice. I can share the boards with them as well, with Rose as well later, because it's nice to see that the learning that you took from it is really the essence of empowerment and engagement. I think they're very important aspects of it. So I hand you back to Janice now for the next bit. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. So now I have pleasure in welcoming the final speaker today, Pia Jennings from Largus. And Pia will make her own introductions, but Pia will help us to understand how the European Youth Goals connect with policy at a higher level, but also in relation to your practice around empowerment with young people and other areas of work that you do. So again, Pia has about 20 minutes. We'll have 1 or 2 questions at the end, and that will bring us to a close. So
thanks, Janice. I really hope everybody can hear me okay. I have the router pretty much like on my head, so I hope it stays stable. So thanks for having me, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about policy and connecting to policy in your work, and how that can also help to enhance, I suppose, the engagement of young people. So yeah, so the first thing that I wanted to do, and I hope it works, is to just get you guys to go to Menti again. I've put the code, so we're going to go to Menti twice. So I've put 2 codes in the chat. So if you could all just put in the first code, and I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you can see it. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
So just to start the conversation, I wanted you guys to identify a few of the key issues that are affecting the young people that you work with. And as we go through the youth goals and some of the other policy areas I'm going to talk about, hopefully you can start connecting the dots. So I hope this works for everybody. Mental health challenges, family issues, isolation. Employment.
Isolation is getting bigger.
Mm-hmm. The environment coming up again. Climate. Discrimination. So I'd say, has everybody inputted?
It just doesn't seem to be working, to be honest with you, but that's more than like my own ability with technology, to be quite honest.
It's not working for you, is it?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be, but...
Okay. So you can also try and do it on your phone. Otherwise, you can just go to menti.com and put in the code.
Okay. I'll give it a go, but as I said, it's more than likely my own abilities with technology.
No, the other one didn't work. Mine didn't work.
Oh, did it not?
No,
Okay.
for some reason it was closed. I don't know why. I didn't figure that out.
Okay.
Was there anything else that sprung to mind for you?
Personally, no. Like the main things that would affect kind of people in my area would be isolation as well as inequality. But that's all. So.
And isolation, rural isolation, or
especially in West Waterford, we're actually doing a project now in a few weeks to kind of help that. But definitely in kind of the more rural parts of Waterford, it's a huge problem now with isolation.
And obviously, as Mika already said, compounded now by COVID and restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think we have a good sense already there of some of the issues that are affecting the young people. So as I said, just kind of bear those in mind maybe as I go through my presentation, and we can come back to them a little bit later. So, bear with me. Now. I'm just going to change the view on this so that you can all see it. Now, can everybody see that okay? The quick reaction, thumbs up, yeah. I take your silence as a no. I can't see everybody. I can only see Mika, Zita, and myself.
Yeah.
So I'm counting on you for reactions.
Yeah,
okay, great.
It's all good.
Great. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about policy and connecting your projects to policy. Obviously under Erasmus Plus and also under the European Solidarity Corps, projects and organizations are encouraged and expected where possible to start linking what they do to policy. And it's going to become an even stronger feature in the new program next year. That's not to say that everybody is expected to be a expert, but I think it's more about, I suppose, encouraging people to see how the work that they do links in with the kind of wider policy agenda around them. So hopefully my presentation today will help you to start kind of thinking along those lines a little bit. So I suppose the first thing that I just wanted to really talk about is what is policy, because I think sometimes we can feel very far removed from it and we think it's something that's out there in the ether but doesn't really come into play in terms of our own work. So I suppose in simple terms, policy is the set of values and objectives that guide the work of organizations and bodies. So we see that obviously at a European level and at a national level, but also at a local level and even at our own organizational level. We all have organizational policies that we're expected to adhere to and to implement. So in terms of why policy is important and why I'm encouraging you to look at policy, I suppose is because that, policy tells us what different organizations and what bodies are planning to achieve and how they be guided in our work or in their work. And where that's obviously very obvious is from a government point of view. So, government policy tells us what the government priorities are, what it plans to accomplish, and it sets out the commitments the government is making on a range of different issues. So for example, and some of the issues that already came up here today around inclusion, around integration, gender equality, the rights of people with disabilities, migration, and so forth. And they're just a couple of examples that I've pulled out. So it tells us the plans, the priorities, the commitment, and it's also a really important accountability tool. And particularly for organizations, civil society organizations, youth organizations, policy is an accountability tool to hold the government to account for the promises that it's making in its policies and its strategies. So I've made a little diagram here in terms of how you can start looking at how policy might link to your work. So there are 4 kind of key questions that I've just posed that you might jot down and you can kind of come back to as all of this percolates maybe in your minds and you think about it even after today. So the first question that you might ask yourself is, what's your organization's main area of work? what are you trying to achieve? What is your organization trying to achieve? Or indeed maybe your project, and people talked specifically about, you know, the project goals, I guess, earlier today, the speakers. So you might ask yourself, what is your organization, or what is your specific project trying to achieve? And then you might look at, well, what policy exists in this area? So you can look at a national level, in your own country context, at a European level, and then obviously also at an international level, at a UN level, for example. And then the last question, is your work aligned with, or is it influencing or helping to achieve these policy objectives that have been set? So the examples that I've just given here is, well, your main area of work, the majority of you are in the area of youth work. What is your project trying to achieve? Well, in this context today, talking about, you know, active and engaged young people, maybe active citizenship and participation of young people is one of the things, or one of your objectives that you're trying to achieve. But straight away then, if that's your objective, you're linking to policy. So at a national level, I've given the Irish policy examples because they're the ones that I know best, but you will know your own youth strategies and your own children's rights strategies and so forth in your own country context. But at a national level in Ireland, for example, we have a number of policies that prioritise the participation and active citizenship of young people. So one is called Better Outcomes, Brighter Futures. We have a national youth strategy, and we even have a national strategy on participation and decision-making for children and young people. So very simply put, your project, if you're looking at active citizenship, and if that's what you're trying to achieve for your young people, then you're already engaging with these kind of policies, whether you know it or not. And then obviously at a European level, the EU Youth Strategy is relevant in this context, and also the European Youth Goals, which I'm going to go into in a little bit more detail in a minute. And at an international level, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which might feel really far removed, but again, prioritizes the participation of young people and having their voices heard in decisions that affect them. So if your organization is working on the issue of active citizenship, then it's helping to achieve policy objectives. So you're enabling active citizenship of young people, and therefore you're helping to achieve your own national policy priorities in that area, but also you're working to the EU Youth Strategy, you're working to the European Youth Goals, and you're even working to the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, as I said, whether you know it or not. So hopefully this kind of illustrates a little bit those questions that you can ask yourself and how you can start introducing the aspect or the idea of connecting with policy into your work. So I'm going to concentrate for the remainder of the presentation on the EU Youth Goals, because they're a really good example, I think, of, and they apply to all of us here, and they're a really good example of how organizations and young people themselves can engage with policy and strategy at a European level and feel more connected, maybe even to the EU and what the EU is hoping to achieve for young people. So for those of you who aren't overly familiar with the youth goals, they came about through the 6th cycle of the EU Youth Dialogue process in 2017 and 2018 on the theme of Youth in Europe, What's Next? And the EU Youth Dialogue, for those of you who aren't too familiar with it, is the flagship participation methodology that the EU uses to engage young people and bring them together with policymakers. So for each country that holds the EU presidency, a cycle of the EU Youth Dialogue takes place, and it looks at different issues that are affecting young people and brings them together in a consultative process. So the aim of the 6th cycle, where the youth goals came out of, was to gather the voices of young people and to contribute to creating the EU Youth Strategy, the new youth strategy, which runs from 2019 to 2027. So the EU Youth Strategy, which is based on these 3 principles of engage, connect, and empower, should also contribute to realizing the EU Youth Goals, which reflect the vision of young people across Europe. And the EU Youth Goals cover a broad range of diverse different thematic areas, which I'll go into a little bit more in a minute. But if we just take a second even to look at the EU Youth Strategy, we're looking at engagement of young people, we're looking at empowering young people, and we're looking at connecting young people to the EU. And already from the presentations that we heard earlier, and I'm sure you have lots of examples yourself, these 3 issues are really important and are really central to the work that many of you are doing. So straight away, you're already connecting to the EU Youth Strategy. So the goals, the EU Youth Goals, there are 11 of them in total, and they cover a broad range of different areas. And before I go through them, I just wanted to go back to some of the values that you guys identified earlier today. And some of these were around equality, inclusion of young people in decisions that affect them and giving them a voice, listening to young people, the rights of young people, and also somebody actually mentioned access to information and you know, social media and engaging with young people and ensuring they can access information. So as we go through the youth goals, you'll see already that some of these values that you've identified actually link really strongly to these goals. So you can read the goals in more detail in your own time, but I'll just run through them quickly here. So the first goal is about connecting the EU with young people. And that obviously stems from the fact that many young people still feel disconnected from the EU. So through your projects, you're already really opening that up for young people and making them, you know, giving them the opportunity to engage with other European young people and finding that connection maybe more to Europe and what it means to be part of the EU. The second one is around gender equality and strengthening gender equality for all young people. The third is around creating inclusive societies. The fourth then is around information and constructive dialogue, and that also includes actually access to reliable information. One of the problems obviously that we're facing now with people relying more and more on the internet and on social media for their information is actually ensuring that people have access to reliable and concrete and true information. The fifth then is around mental health and well-being. Well-being obviously was, you know, spoken about earlier in Declan's presentation and how that really featured in their project. The sixth is around moving rural youth forward, and that comes back to the issue of, you know, rural isolation and creating opportunities for young people in rural areas. The seventh then is around employment, and again that was an issue that somebody identified earlier in the issues that are affecting the young people they work with. The eighth is around quality learning and integrating and recognizing and improving different forms of learning. The ninth then is around creating space and participation for all, and I think that's been identified by most, if not all of you, in terms of strengthening young people's democratic participation and providing them with that space to be able to do that. The 10th is sustainable and green Europe, climate change. The environment has come up many times throughout the discussions this morning. And the last one then is around youth organizations and European programs. So really ensuring that young people have equal access to youth organizations and to European programs. And obviously a big priority under the European programs that we manage is inclusion and providing equal opportunities for young people to participate. So they're the 11 goals. As you can see, there's already lots of connection to the work that you do. So I suppose one of the questions then just to ask ourselves is, you know, why connect with the goals? Why are they important? Well, one of the things that, you know, sorry, I'm just going to move my view here because I actually can't see the presentation. Just a second. So
can I just suggest in the background, if people have questions for Pia, maybe you could start typing them into the chat so they're not lost at the end. You can do that as well.
Great, thanks, Janice. So why connect to the goals? Well, firstly, they're a great way of connecting your work or your project with European policy. And as I said already, you know, that is something that is looked for in Erasmus Plus applications and also the European Solidarity Corps. And it's something that's going to feature more prominently as we go forward into the new programs. The goals can really help to frame and benchmark your work. And they also act as an advocacy tool. And it allows young people to contextualize the issues within their own lives. So it gives you something really concrete to attach the work that you're doing to. And it makes the young people see that actually there are specific policy priorities in these areas that they can connect with. And I think what's really important also to say is that, you know, there is no one size fits all, but there is an element of solidarity also within the goals. It's really important to remember that these goals were devised by young people themselves right across Europe. So even though the issues that are affecting young people might differ slightly within different contexts that you're working in, they still apply and they still affect all young people across Europe. And that's, I think, a really important goals, that these were drawn up in consultation and by young people themselves across Europe. It's also really important, I think, to highlight that many different policy and decision makers can be involved in realizing the goals, such as local authorities, the police, decision makers in your local areas, and in your own youth organization as well. I think that, you know, organizations can also take the goals and make them into their own reality, or link them to their own reality, and can find connection between the work that they do and the work that others do. And you can also, from a really strategic point of view, you can look at how the goals might map into the work, the strategic planning of your organization. So I suppose just to say, you know, the goals are a great way of framing your European project, whether it be a youth exchange, a youth initiative, youth dialogue, or of course the European Solidarity Corps as well. And I just wanted to give you some food for thought as you go forward, and hopefully this will kind of start to sink into your minds a little bit. Some of the key questions that you might ask yourself if you're looking at, okay, we really want to link and influence policy more to empower young people. The first issue that you might ask yourself is, well, what are the issues that the young people you work with want to address? And these could be issues, you know, at a very local level, at a national, or indeed at a transnational level. You might look at, well, how do these then link to, for example, the EU youth goals that we looked at today, or the youth strategy, or national policy in your own country context, or also local policy? Who are the relevant decision makers and policy makers that you could potentially link with? And maybe then ask yourself, what are the structures or the spaces that you can link with to amplify the young people's voices? So you might have a national youth council or a youth dialogue process in your own national contexts. You might have national or local consultations that are happening, or best yet, I think, create your own space and bring the decision makers to you and empower the young people in that way. I wanted to just finish up with giving you a project example, and this is a Key Action 3 project. So it's a youth dialogue project that we funded in 2019, and it's with an organization called the Central Remedial Clinic, which are one of the largest organizations in Ireland that work with young people and with adults with disabilities. And this project was called The Right to Decide, Making Equality Our Policy. And it was really inspirational because it was the first time that the CRC took part in Erasmus+, and they created a project that involved over 400 young people across Ireland and gave them a voice. And it was based on the fact that Ireland hadn't yet signed up to the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. So the young people wanted the opportunity to engage with their own local decision makers and to get more of an idea of how the political sphere works and how policymaking works. So the project itself entailed self-advocacy workshops, meeting with local government representatives, and a visit to government buildings. And what was really great about the project then was that it happened at a very local level, but the CRC then linked with the National Youth Council of Ireland, and young people with disabilities from the CRC got to take part in National Youth Council events and consultations with young people and amplify their own voices. And what they fed back was then fed back into the EU dialogue process. So it was a really good example of how issues from a very local level were fed back to the national level and then into the EU policy making sphere. Their engagement is going from strength to strength, and we have a number of young people from that project who've become really vocal online, who've become really empowered through this whole process. And just a little quote to finish off on is, I strongly encourage young people with an opinion on equality and the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities to use your voice. By joining the Erasmus project, you have the chance to help change the government policies and make a positive difference, not only for you, but for the people around you and the world we live in. So I think that's a really nice quote from one of the participants. And from their project, I've just identified a number of the youth goals as well that they link with. So connecting the EU with young people, creating inclusive societies, creating constructive dialogue with decision makers, and creating space and participation for all. There's a little video link, which I was going to show you, but I think we're running short on time. So I'm just going to share it in the chat and you can have a look at it in your own time. So if we have the time, I'm just going to go back to the Menti just to start connecting the dots. Is that okay, Janice, for a minute? Or
Yeah, I'll just acknowledge in the group that we actually took a bit of Pia's time away. We hadn't informed her that we were starting a bit later, so I'm going to give Pia an additional 5 minutes, if that's okay with everybody. And we'll just finish at the later time of about 10 past 12 max, okay?
Brilliant. Thanks, Janice. So just give me 1 minute. I need to just connect into my mentee again. I suppose in the meantime, while I'm doing this, is anybody already connecting with the youth goals? I'd be really interested to hear that. Has anybody?
I think what you said, Pia, was very reassuring, because it sounds to me like nearly everybody is connecting with them in some way. Like you said a couple of times, whether we realize it or not, they're very alive in terms of the work that we do nationally, and definitely, you know, connected is another word that you used a lot. Definitely connected to policy at a higher level.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, sometimes, like I said, you can feel so far removed, but actually when you break it down, you're probably a lot closer to policy than you might think. So I'm just going to bring this up now. Okay. Just a minute. Now, let me just screen share. Okay. So I've just asked you a couple of questions based on what you've heard. So maybe you can start looking at how you might connect, or how you feel that maybe your work connects to the youth goals. I hope everybody can see the codes and everything. So the youth goals or other policy are relevant to my work with young people from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So we're on a solid 6, which I'm fairly pleased with. 6.3, we're moving up. Okay, so I definitely think that there's certainly a feeling that you do connect to policy in some shape or form. And sometimes it's just about making it explicit, you know. So if we move to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So can you name a space or a structure or organization that you can link with or create to connect young people with decision or policymakers? So are there any spaces that come to mind, or any organizations that you would maybe like to link with to connect your young people with decision or policymakers? Or maybe you're already doing it. National Youth Council, yeah. National Youth Council of Ireland, NYCI. Can't read that. Oh, Iuventa, is it? Yeah. Battle Young VSW, is that a youth organization or NCCA? Lots of structures and organizations being identified there. Youth Office, which I assume is maybe like the Youth Council in Ireland. And I think what I would encourage you as well to think about is that, you know, sometimes it's also really helpful to engage with organizations and structures maybe that are outside of the sphere of youth work. They can be very influential as well.
Yeah, I mean, Pia, you mentioned the presidency, you know, that a different European country hosts the presidency every so often. And I was trying to write the structure in, but the European Youth Forum can be quite elite at times. So really important for us to find ways to support our young people to engage in those types of structures as well, so that what's being produced is actually really relevant to what's happening in relation to issues for young people on the ground. So I did try to put in the youth forum and it wouldn't come up. I don't know what's going on. Okay.
Okay, and I'll just move to the last one then, maybe, if everybody has inputted. Well, another one, but maybe we've lost it. Okay, I think we've lost Menti, but anyway, I think that gives us a good indication of some of the spaces and some of the actors, and hopefully it's getting the creative juices flowing. So thanks a million for your time, and obviously if anybody has questions, feel free to shout now.
We could probably take one question, and then if there's any other questions, fire them into the chat and we can ask Pia to respond to them in advance of next week. No, everything was crystal clear, Pia, good job.
What I'm going to do as well is I have a resource from a youth worker on how to engage with the youth goals. It's based on kind of a football team type scenario. It's really good. So I'm going to share that with you after today. I'll share the presentation, and there's some useful links as well to resources. And also we did a whole series on the youth goals and connecting to policy that are on our website. So I did some interviews with youth workers, the National Youth Council, and also a young person who was involved in the whole process of the youth goals coming about. So it might be something that you'd like to link in with afterwards.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Pia.
You can send us the links and we'll send it to everybody then, Pia.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, a bit of clapping going on in the background, and over to Mika to close today.
Okay, I will close, and I try to do this quick. So this time, to prepare for next Monday, we have actually some proper task and more complicated task in some ways. We will ask you to prepare a tool that will support active engagement or empower young people. Yeah, so I give a very quick presentation about what the tool entails, which most of you might already have a very clear idea about, but just a very little quick of an introduction to it. So what's a tool for learning? Yeah, it just shows here. So a tool, it has a theme. So in this case, this theme will approach empowerment, active engagement of young people. So that would be the theme. The technique is how will you do it? Yeah, and then the target group is for who will you do it? What materials will you use? The timing, is it going to be over a long period of time or is it going to be a short period of time? And then tips for use and description. So then if you come back to it, it transfers an educational objective. So that goes back to the theme and why you do it. So the first thing is you ask, why do you do this? Yeah, it engages participants in the learning process. Yeah, so it is very much what we're talking about, the non-formal methods. It's the participants are part of the process. It provides the possibility for participants to identify their own learning. So this comes again, talk to your people. What is it they want? But it also helps, the tool itself will help that. So you could have a tool that actually helps people or participants to start thinking, what is important for me? Because very often just thinking about what's important for me is already not that easy, you know? So that itself can be a tool. And then it's open for adoption and it's transferable. So, but that is not so important. So, but what for me are the most important ones are really that you have it, that it transfers, you do it for a reason. Whatever you do for a reason. It engages participants and it is something that you can share then as well with other participants here. So if you look at then what we have here is a template, copy link. Hold on, please go. This is the template that we will give you. Yeah, so you have the age group, very important. How many participants will you be doing this with? the reason for having this tool method. Yeah, what do you need to address? What do you want to achieve? So there is the reason you do this tool, but also what do you want to achieve? The reason could be young people find it hard to express themselves. They don't really have an idea of what is important to them. And what do you want to achieve is we want young people to understand and really have an idea of what they would want to work, what they care for, what we can help, you know, something that will help them to be more engaged. Then you describe it, and then we have here in the bottom a grid. Yeah, so the time, title of the step, objectives, description of step, and materials needed. Now the time is not so important in this case, yeah, but it's really important to think of one tool that you can describe like this, and that you can then, when you come back on Monday, you can work on that with another person and share it with that person. And if everybody does this, we have at the end a collection of tools that you can use at home to help your young people to be more active and more engaged, and that is kind of a toolbook for you. I will link this to you, but now I'm just gonna ask you if you have any questions. So coming back to the screen, is that clear, or did I go through that too fast? Do you understand what you're asked to do for Monday? Yeah? Yeah?
Can I just ask, are we looking for virtual tools or ones you use in person?
I'd say a collection. It would be nice to have both tools, but whatever tool you choose, make sure that you very clearly clarify what it is used for and why you would use it. Yeah? And it would be good not to have virtual tools, but of course we do not know what people are going to do, so we just have to see how it works. But on Monday, the first part of coming together is actually sharing these tools and maybe fine tune them a little bit, or, you know, to really share them with a few people. Okay. Yeah, we will send this to you as well, so you have this explanation, and you will have the sheet that I showed you there. The Google document that I showed you, you get it, and it is only a few only, so you have to create a copy. Yeah, otherwise everybody destroys each other's work, so you have to create a copy, and then you can make your own. So I will describe that as well, but it's important that you do that. It's the only thing you can do, actually. Okay, any other questions?
So Mika, what you just said at the very end now about the code, I didn't get it.
Okay, I will describe that. I will send you the link of the Google document, yeah? And the Google document is on a setting view only. That means you cannot do any editing. I do that on purpose because I want you to make a copy and create your own copy. Yeah? Okay.
You're nasty. They've got loads of homework for the weekend, Mika.
If you work a lot, you might just shake one out of your sleeve.
Absolutely.
Or not. We know, don't know.
Yeah.
So that was the homework. So Ruth or Janice, do you want to say something still?
I want to say have a nice weekend, everybody, and see you on Monday morning. And thank you for your patience. We had a few little tiny technical glitches, but we did say when we opened last week, this is our first online training. So we're learning a lot too. So have a nice weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on Monday.
Bye.
Bye.
Well done.
Day 2.
Good job, guys.
I think it went okay. I think it was good. Mika, why are you rubbing your face?
Tired.
Tired. Okay. Yeah.
But no, I think it went well. I discovered why the Menti wasn't closed. Was just ticking one box. Stupid. Don't know why the box was ticked. But yeah.
These things happen. I had 3 questions and one disappeared, so I don't know where that went. I think you just need to go with the flow.
Yeah,
that's it. Do we want to
run?
Was
great.
Yeah, I think it was good, and I think everybody came back today with a few new people replacing people in organisations. But hang on, we've got a message there in the chat.
No, that's from me.
Caitlin, good luck to your daughter today, Janice. The CAO offers. Good for her. 2 o'clock, they'll all know. God love them.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh God.
We had the results on Monday, and now we have the CAO. Yeah.
Okay. Has she applied for many things?
No, she's taken a year out. She's not going to college this year, and I think she's dead right. I mean, she had already decided that, but she really decided it then. I feel sorry for any of them going to college online this year, and it's so uncertain. And yeah,
Mind you, know not to go to college, and he's now 23, still not going to college.
You know what? College is not for everybody, and I mean, just like what Andrew said earlier on, there's more ways to learn than inside the classroom, traveling and all the other things. So,
so is there anything that we need to note down from this that we need to remind ourselves for next time? I think it was quite smooth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it went really well.
I thought it was very smooth. Well done.
Yeah.
It was really good.
The only observation I had, and it's always the same, and you can never tell until it happens, is how specific the speakers are in terms of their delivery. And are we just the only 4 in here now? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, we're still recording.
Are we? Okay.
I'll just stop that. We'll cut.